So you probably didn't know this, but THQ actually made a licensed game based on Conan the Barbarian. Hell, I didn't know about it until I spotted the game on the shelf at the local game store that I browse every other weekend. All right, let's just get through this one quickly because I don't want to spend too much time on this video. I already spent way too much time on this game. I didn't like it. All right, jokes aside, simply titled Conan, the game was released for the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 in September of 2007 and was developed by Nihilistic Software, known for their other releases. So THQ didn't exactly put the A-team on Conan, but hey, what do you expect? 2007 is when THQ was just bleeding money. The situation was so bad for THQ in 2007 that they actually made Conan release in late 2007 instead of spring 2008 as they originally planned. But I won't go into all of that detail. Hell, I already made another long as shit video about the downfall of THQ and Homefront and how its failure ended up being the straw that broke the camel's back and led to THQ's collapse. What needs to be said about the history of Conan the Barbarian? It's one of the most recognizable pop culture IPs that pretty much everyone knows the name of, but only a few people know anything beyond the fact that there's a movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, hell, that's all I know. That and what is best in life.
Crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of their women.
I'm not even going to try to go into depth about Conan. All you really need to know is that Conan the Barbarian first appeared in short stories written by Robert E. Howard in the 1930s. Many depictions, stories, and adaptations have been made to expand on those original stories. Set in Hyboria, the age between the fall of Atlantis and the rise of known ancient civilizations, bloodshed and magic are everywhere, and wizards, demons, and sorceresses blight the world. It's a really brutal setting. The men are beefcakes, and there are boobs everywhere. So it's a pretty easy setting with lots of rich lore and well-loved stories to draw from for the video game. And they were able to secure an M for mature rating, meaning that there's gotta be some of that brutal world here. It'd be pretty hard to fuck this up, right? Right? I'm Ice Cold Snake, and welcome back to Games We Skipped, the series where we take a look at the games that flew under the radar and went mostly forgotten, or in Conan's case, completely forgotten. But now, years later, I'm diving back in to see what we all missed. Conan went mostly forgotten because it's the definition of mid. It's just fucking boring. The entire game can be played with your brain turned off, and you can just mash buttons in all of the fights. If you look at the reviews, and as you can see from my footage, it's a God of War clone through and through. And that's not immediately a problem. I mean, there can be good God of War clones, but this ain't one of them. It's got all of the trappings of a God of War clone. It's got the fixed camera for the action. It's got light attacks, heavy attacks, combos are important. Dodge roll is on your right stick. There are chests and pots that drop healing orbs. Pressing the right bumper will open up the chests. There are multiple magic spells. There are epic boss battles against giant monsters. And of course, there are quick time events. So you might be saying that lots of games have those features, and that doesn't exactly make it a God of War clone. But Nihilistic themselves even said that they sought out an opportunity to make a game like God of War after the release of Marvel Nemesis in 2005. So how does it play? Well, let's first get through the story since there isn't a whole lot to discuss. The story is actually based off of one of the original short stories from 1934 with some tweaks to characters and to settings. While pillaging a tomb, Conan accidentally frees the imprisoned evil wizard Graven. Graven curses Conan's magic armor, scattering it across the world and teleporting Conan away. Conan seeks to reclaim his magic armor and ventures to various locales to find it. On his travels, he meets Akana, a warrior queen.
I am Conan. I serve no man.
Perhaps you would serve a woman then.
Service her. Aye, and gladly.
Akana seeks a cure for the Black Death, a curse cast by Graven that is causing her people to kill each other. Teaming up, the duo travel across the world, battling armies of soldiers, epic monsters, and all with an air of sexual tension. As Conan defeats a boss and reclaims his armor pieces during the chapters, cutscenes will play to tell of how Graven came to be imprisoned. And it all gives a sense of mystery unfolding piece by piece, which I actually really enjoyed. We uncover that Graven created the Black Death to shape the world to his liking. To do so, he imprisoned several gods, which led to many spirits and men working together to imprison Graven. And now that Graven's free, he plans to complete the creation of the Black Death, which requires the sacrifice of his own daughter, Akana.
What a twist!
Eventually, Conan and Akana defeat her father to end the curse, freeing the imprisoned gods who condemned Graven to eternal torment. Conan reclaims his armor and parts ways with Akana as he sets off for another adventure. And the old woman telling this tale to the kids of the village and narrating our story turns out to be Akana many years later. All of that's a pretty good story and all, but what's missing here is everything between the lines of what I just said. What you get instead is that overview sprinkled sentence by sentence over the course of 6 hours of gameplay, with hour-long gaps between each story beat. For most of the game, it's unclear why Conan is where he is, and when you do eventually find a piece of armor, it's unclear why he's going to the next place. There aren't any moments for Conan to process what's going on or where he's going, or even understand the people who he's fighting against. Things just sort of happen, and you'll quickly just turn your brain off because there's no stimulation at all. You'll be fighting a massive magic-empowered man or the soul of an undead elephant, and there will be no explanation for why, and Conan will have no reaction to it. I'm not saying that we need to have Conan talking like a modern Sony game.
This must be the Zenith base. Looks like they have a shield around the entire place. Of course, they'd make their base on their own private island. Hold on, Beta. Coming for you soon. But to the current problem.
Can you shut the fuck up?
But it would be nice to know what's going on in his brain, or if he even has one. And since we're about to talk about gameplay, let's just rip the band-aid off and start comparing it to God of War. You could summarize God of War in a pretty similar manner to what I just did for Conan, and I'll do that briefly for the first game since that was the only one out at the time of Conan's development. Kratos is a badass Spartan warlord that promises to serve the god of war Ares if Ares will smite his enemies when Kratos has finally been defeated in battle. Kratos is bound to the Blades of Chaos and carries out orders to destroy the enemies of Ares. During one such attack, Ares blinds Kratos with fury, causing him to strike down his own wife and child. Kratos, consumed with hatred, pledges to kill Ares for Athena. Kratos overcomes many epic battles, gathering powerful magical artifacts, and finds Pandora's box to gain the power needed to slay Ares. But before he can do so, Ares kills him and sends him to the underworld, where he climbs out, finds Ares, and opens Pandora's box in order to finally kill him and have his sins forgiven. When Kratos discovers that Athena cannot erase his nightmares of slaying his own family, Kratos casts himself into the Aegean Sea, in one of the most emotionally powerful cutscenes ever, I might add. But before he dies, he is saved by Athena, sent to Mount Olympus, and given the reward of being adorned as the new God of War. That pretty much sums up God of War. Except what makes God of War so memorable is all of the things that happen in between those major plot lines. Like when Kratos is guided by Athena throughout his journey, or when he kills off the boat captain to take his key, and then we find him again in the underworld.
You again?
Or how the narrator explains Kratos' journey to reach Pandora's box.
For 3 days, Kratos climbed the sheer walls of the mountain. He knew he would either recover Pandora's box or perish inside the cursed temple, never to return to the world of man.
See, it's all these little things throughout the adventure that connect you to Kratos and to the Greek mythology and world that the game takes place in, but none of that happens here in Conan. Instead, you're just shuffled along to new areas via loading screens, with nearly every chapter starting with the same starting point. And I don't know how much more I could say about the story. The big takeaway is that there's just no hook for you to grab onto, no world building, there's no epic plot beyond wizard bad. You don't even really learn what evil Graven is up to until about the last hour of the game, and until then, you're just looking for the fuckers that stole your armor. So does the gameplay and combat make up for the story? No, not in the fucking slightest. The combat relies entirely on combos, which is pretty standard for games in this genre. You'll start off the game with very few combos, and as you kill enemies, you'll earn red orbs, which can be spent to acquire new combos. Some of the combos can actually improve after you use them enough to gain full mastery of the combo. Doing so makes the combo drop additional XP orbs, green HP orbs, or blue mana orbs. And that's pretty much it for the progression system. You just get red orbs, purchase a specific combo, get red orbs, purchase another combo, so on and so forth. So to stretch all of this out, and because God of War of course had multiple weapon types, there are different weapons that can be picked up and combos for each type. There's the basic one-handed weapon that Conan starts with, which can be augmented by picking up or stealing an enemy's shield using one of the combos later on in the game. There's also dual wielding an axe or another sword in your offhand, and there are larger bastard swords or pole arms that you pick up. I ended up never using the larger weapons because the windups are just too long, and instead I just stuck with the dual wielding. The combos are actually pretty well done. One in particular makes Conan grab the enemy and suplex them to unleash a shockwave that damages all surrounding enemies. But a lot of the combos are situational, and you have to know the exact combination that you're trying to go for, because if you make one mistake near the end, you can have a completely different outcome for what you're trying to do. Like if you're trying to disarm an enemy, at the end of your combo, you need to hit the Y button. But if you want to steal their shield, you hit B. So if you forget and you accidentally hit B, but they don't have a shield, well, you just got yourself screwed over and now you're about to get hit and take a lot of damage. But the sheer volume of combos is both a blessing and a curse. By the midpoint of the game, I just stopped purchasing combos altogether because the list was already much larger than I could remember, and I just didn't want to have to open the menu anymore and look through the combos to find the one needed for any situation. I ended up turning to just button mashing the same few combos, which is kind of exactly what the developers wanted, so hats off, I guess. The combat itself is full of problems. It's one of those like game feel things that you probably won't even be able to grasp until you play it and feel it for yourself. It's all just really stiff for multiple reasons. One of my favorite things that I've learned about game design in recent years comes from a GDC presentation from 2017 God of War's lead gameplay designer Jason McDonald. In the presentation, he tells about how they designed the new Kratos' combat around the phrase, "plow the road." This simple mantra is felt throughout the combat as you push enemies away and into each other with every swing of Kratos' axe. A simple idea like making sure you feel like you're plowing a road can have such a massive impact on the way that a game's combat is designed to feel. I bring this up because during the same presentation, Jason explains that the mantra for the original God of War was ballet of fire. Kratos dances around the battlefield with subtle footwork, swinging the flaming blades of chaos at all enemies and twirling around in an act of grace and power. And to the player, you feel like Kratos is gliding around, responding to your every input. And if you hit the joystick in a direction while attacking, Kratos steps in that direction while attacking to close the distance, and Kratos responds to your changes in direction as you try to deal with the crowds of enemies that are swarming you. Conan has the crowd of enemies part, but not the rest. Conan's attacks aren't really capable of dealing with crowds of enemies. He's really only equipped to focus on small groups or one target at a time, and that's a problem in the later stages when you start getting ganged up on by like 5 or 6 enemies all at once. When you press the attack button, Conan stops all movement and just stands still to attack. And there are so many times where you'll just accidentally stop in place and you'll miss your swing at an enemy by about a foot, because you just expect Conan to lean or step forward into the attack. And this just kills the momentum that you've built up as you run into the group of enemies to fight them. It makes you feel like you just don't have control over Conan. When you complete a combo, the game goes into a slow-mo cinematic camera so you can see the finisher, but it also goes into this camera even if you fail to hit the enemy with the combo finisher, which again just slows down the fight and completely kills any momentum that you might be feeling. When you do finally hit an enemy, they'll usually just block your attacks constantly, and then they'll retaliate quickly with attacks that have very few frames. This is pretty much what every fight looks like. You can parry an enemy's attack, and if you do so, you'll get a chance to counter with an instant kill if you hit the button prompts, and these are fucking awesome. But there are 2 main issues with these parry kills. One is the short window where you have to press the correct button. The parry window is so tight that I never really trusted that I would be able to land the parry, so I would just end up button mashing my next attack and I'd fail the prompt before I even had a chance to register that it was on the screen. And the other problem is you just don't get to decide what type of parry kill you're gonna do. You're just at the mercy of the RNG. You also get access to 4 magic powers that you unlock over the course of the game, with each successive power requiring an additional bar from your mana pool. The first spell is a spell to turn enemies in front of you to stone. It's a very small radius to cast it, and it's difficult to aim, so about half the time I would just fucking miss. The second is a Rain of Fire. You can guess what this does. The third is a swarm of evil ravens called down to attack your enemies. And these are pretty much fucking useless because the 3 times I used them, they wouldn't hit any enemies. And the last one that you'll get is the ability to create a black hole, which really just kicks so much fucking ass. But the only problem with it is that it also costs all 4 of your bars of magic. And the game is pretty stingy with the amount of magic that you'll get. So you'll only be able to maybe use this twice during the final 2 chapters of the game. And fans of Conan's lore will probably be confused as to why Conan is using magic here in the game, something that he's adamantly against using in all of the short stories. IGN's review actually captured this, calling Conan's use of magic blasphemy. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention it, but the more you attack enemies, the more you'll fill this yellow bar, and once it's filled, you'll enter Song of Death mode, causing Conan's attacks to unleash shockwaves and do more damage. But if you get hit while you're in it, you'll exit the mode, and I'm pretty sure I only got to use it like 3 times during the whole game and only for a few seconds each because it's just so difficult to avoid getting hit in this game. The combat just becomes such a chore that I ended up growing to despise it and just hoped for a way I could skip it. And that's exactly what I did. Unlike God of War and most other action games, you're not forced to kill all of the enemies before you can advance. You can actually just spend most of the game running past every enemy. I ended up skipping most of the fights in the later half of the game. And in addition to the combat, there are some light puzzles, and by puzzles I mean you get stopped at a dead end, you run around a long time until you find one thing that you can press the right bumper on, he pushes a pillar over, then you can climb up on top of it to reach a higher level, or you can walk across it like a bridge. That's it. There are also these runes on the ground. Touching all 3 within a short time limit will reward you with an increase to your HP, your mana, or your Song of Death bar. But the only collectible that really matters in the world of Conan are the women. Throughout the levels, you'll find maidens that are captured and bound. Saving them rewards you with 100 experience points, basically making them treasure chests with legs and boobs. I, for one, am glad that they earned the M rating by investing so much into the boob jiggle physics. Now, ordinarily, this would be a joke to get you to look back over at the screen, but no, they actually do show full boob in Conan. Too bad for you, this is YouTube and I won't be showing any of it to you. But you can rest assured that I enjoyed it on your behalf. All right, and so I've basically talked about this game more than I ever wanted to, so let's just speed through some final thoughts. The music is fucking incredible. The boss fights are insanely epic. They're the best part of the entire fucking game. The general combat is just a boring slog. I wasn't engaged with it like at fucking all, and so I was just skipping it all the time. And the final boss just takes way too long to kill. We're talking multiple phases, a mechanic that gives you barely any time to react, and 3 of the exact same QuickTime event sequences in order to kill him. So this version of Conan will go into my pile of bad games that I'm glad went forgotten and I skipped back when they came out. But instead of playing them back then when, I couldn't give a shit about the quality of games, I got to play Conan now. And now is when I'm committed to spending hours reviewing games from the bargain bin of history. At least eventually, if I keep this up, I'll get to play a good game, right? Right? Well, anyway, massive shout out to my first channel member, Alec, for supporting the channel. You can support me for free by clicking the subscribe button, or you can have your name listed right here on screen next to the legendary Alec for only $1 a month. If you've got a game that you want to see me cover, let me know in the comments below. I also stream every Wednesday and Saturday at 8 p.m. Pacific on YouTube and Twitch. Come hang out and chat about the games that we skipped live. With that, I'm Ice Cold Snake. I'll see you next time.